The Brazilian League just started, so I'm going to be predicting where these Brazilian League teams are going to be finishing. All right, before I get into this, I just want to say the top 5 league seasons are coming to an end, and I highly, highly recommend watching the Brazilian League. It's cheap no matter where you're at. In America, you can download an app called Funatees. It's like $8 a month. All the Brazilian wonder kids come from here. All the legends come back here. Like Marcelo's playing for Fluminense. Suarez just signed Suarez. There's a bunch of good players here that you've probably never even heard of. It's fun to watch. Okay, so last place up at Curitiba. I don't think Curitiba has anything going for themselves. Goiás last season, they had a striker called Pedro Ahu. He was scoring a lot of goals, and they sold him to another team in the first division, Vasco. So I don't see how they're not going to get relegated. Cuiabá, they have a player like Daverson that I'm familiar with, Palmeiras legend, but I don't think it's going to be enough. They're still going to get relegated. And then 17th place, Cruzeiro. Cruzeiro just spent 3 years straight in the second division, and they just got promoted, and they got bought out by R9, Ronaldo. So you would think, why would they get relegated? In the past year or two, teams in Brazil have been getting bought out, and Cruzeiro is one of them. The difference between Cruzeiro and the other ones is R9 has not taken responsibility of the depth. Like the depth is not his. It's not he can walk away from it if he wants to, as far as I know. And he is not invested as much as other teams have, especially for this season. So I think if Cruzeiro stays the exact way that they are right now, which I think they will, they're gonna get relegated. 16th is probably gonna sound surprising, but I put Santos, even though it's Pelé's team, Neymar's team. They don't have the money, and they've been performing really trash. So I think 16th is where they're going to end. 15th, I put Bahia. Bahia has been bought out by Man City's owner. Even though Bahia has not been performing well, I don't think Man City's owner is going to let Bahia get relegated. So that's why I put them 15th. 14th place, I put Red Bull. Even though they haven't been playing well, I can't imagine Red Bull allowing Red Bull to get relegated. They'll just put a bunch of money. 13th place, I put América Mineiro. América Mineiro is a small team, but last season they finished 10th place. They've been performing well. I think this Brazilian League season is going to be a lot harder than last season, so I'm just going to put them in 13th. 12th place, I put a giant, São Paulo. They have not been performing well. They don't have money. They don't have the players. I think they're going to be 12th place, and if anything, they could end up even lower. 11th place, I put Botafogo. Botafogo is my team. I think we have an okay team. The manager's kind of trash, but we have a billionaire. So if things start to go bad, he's just going to buy a bunch of players, and he has shown that he will buy players. He's not going to hold his money back. Vasco, everything I just said pretty much applies to Vasco. They got bought out by a company in America, so they have a lot of money. Not an amazing team. I think slightly better than Botafogo, but if things go to shit, this company that bought Vasco is probably just going to start buying a bunch of players. Internacional last season, I think they surprised us by finishing second place. I don't see that happening again. I think they're going to finish 9th place. 8th place, I put Fortaleza. Fortaleza historically is a small team, but they spent like 3 or 4 seasons in the Brazilian League now. And last season they finished 8th place. I think this season is a much harder Brazilian League, so I'm going to put them right back in 8th place, and that's a compliment, honestly. So 7th place, I put Grêmio. They just came back from the second division, but historically, giant team. And the reason I put them 7th is because they signed Suarez. I think Suarez, just by himself alone, and their manager, I think is enough to push this team up to 7th place. Even though Suarez is old, I cannot imagine him not scoring a bunch of goals. I think he's going to score a bunch of goals. It's going to be really fun to watch. 6th place, I put Atlético Mineiro. They got the money. They even got some of the players. Like, they have Hulk. And, like, 2 seasons ago, they won the Brazilian League. But they have not been performing, and I don't think they're going to finish in the top 4. I think they're going to finish top 6. 5th place, I put Atlético Paranaense. They went to the final of the Libertadores last season, which is the Champions League of South America. They have Fernandinho from Man City. I think they can do it. I think people are sleeping on them. 4th place, I put Corinthians. They got the money. They got the players. They got the fans. They got Paulinho. They got Renato Augusto. They got Roger Guedes. They got Cássio. They have a bunch of good players. I think 4th place is theirs, but I don't think they're going to be competing with these 3 teams. On paper, Flamengo has the best team in the Brazilian League, and they have the most money. But I feel like Flamengo is always a mess. Always. They just fired their manager. They just got a new manager. Because they're such a mess, I'm going to put them in 3rd place. I think Flamengo just being a mess is going to cost them points throughout the season. Like, I would not doubt if they end up firing their current manager before the season ends. In the past couple of years, Palmeiras has been the most consistent team, consistently winning trophies. They have the players. They have the money. So why would I put them in 2nd place? There's 2 reasons. The first reason is they didn't make any big signings at all. I mean, they have a great team, but they didn't make any big signings. And Endrick, the 16-year-old that got signed by Real Madrid for like 60 million, they're depending on him. He's great and all, but he's 16. The second reason is because of how Fluminense is playing. First of all, Fluminense, they have a really good team. Maybe not as good as Palmeiras, but their manager, man, their manager, the way their manager is making them play, they look like Man City. This manager is called Diniz. He's basically the Pep of Brazil. The way he's making Fluminense pass the ball around is beautiful. The way they're playing and they're getting the results. They just won the Campeonato Carioca against Flamengo in the final, and they just signed Marcelo, and Marcelo scored in the final too. Everything is looking really good for Fluminense. And last season, Fluminense finished third place with this manager. I think this season is the season where they're going to win the Brazilian League. I say this because with the time he's had with the preseason, he's improved the team. The team's playing even better. And they signed Marcelo, and Marcelo's playing really well. He's not washed up. Now, this is assuming Diniz does not become the Brazilian national team manager. If he becomes the Brazilian national team manager, Fluminense will not be first place, maybe not even top four.